Welcome back to my second part of my Resident Evil 5 Project Brutality mod playthrough. This video is going to cover up to chapter 2-3, which is the vehicle chapter I mentioned I'd be skipping due to the mod not changing anything about it, and another recommendation of the mod author. Don't worry though, in that chapter, for those unaware, you don't have to use your own weapons or health bar. It's strictly in a vehicle with its own HP and turrets, so I'm not doing anything to skip meaningful content. It's just the same as vanilla Resident Evil 5, so it's not relevant to the run, and the chapter ends as soon as you're done with the vehicle, so I don't miss out on anything. But I've got to be honest, these groups of chapters were extremely difficult, and I died way more than I ever thought possible. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, there are way more enemies per area than in the vanilla game. As a reminder, I'm playing the professional difficulty, which is the hardest one, so almost every attack that hits me or my partner will put me in the dying state with only a few seconds to be saved. This also means that if I choose to kill every enemy to clear a path, I'm investing way more resources that I might need later for bosses. 2. Mini bosses such as the chainsaw enemy or the executioner are seen way more often in the vanilla game, which you will see in this footage. Again, if I want to kill them, that means more bullets are spent. 3. I'm at the mercy of RNG drops. Sometimes I can break some barrels and get ammo, which I desperately need, or other runs I might just get some treasure. This unironically can make or break a run, as sometimes I run out of ammo due to poor drop RNG, which forces me to try and knife enemies, which, let's be real, basically means I'm screwed and forces a reset. 4. My AI partner is an idiot. I cannot stress that enough. It cost me like a third of these runs. Trust me when I say that many of my own deaths are due to the AI being terrible and not helping me or being where I want it to be. Anyway, let's get into the meat of this run. After escaping the stupid village section from the first chapter, I had actually made it a bit into the second section before I stopped playing. The next day, I continued where I left off, only to find out that it reset me back to the beginning of it. Fun. Yeah, as you can see, I was in dire straits in terms of my health, but again, on professional difficulty, being at full health or 1% is basically the same thing 95% of the time. The only attacks that don't instantly down you is one attack from dog enemies, or small parasite enemies that do damage over time later in the game. I will say that having green health does at least serve as a small morale booster for me though, but that's neither here nor there. As you can see in the footage, I'm playing like a total pussy, because I have no idea how the spawns have changed in the mod. Areas that previously had no enemies now have them hiding around corners waiting to ambush me, or jumping me right after passing through a loading screen. Again, I utilize melee attacks to save whatever bit of ammo I can, and knife enemies when they get up from the ground to sprinkle in some extra damage. Unfortunately, I do get hit here, and I'm now in critical health, which basically means that if I get hit again, I'll die pretty much guaranteed. I run through this building and see an enemy crouch down. This enemy is always scripted to be there, and imagine my surprise when a chainsaw enemy gets up and starts coming at me.
Hello there.
Again, I have no secondary weapons like a shotgun, no health, grenades, or anything to help me kill this guy. So I do the sensible thing and run past him after playing Ring Around the Rosie with him. Of course, as soon as I turn the corner, a guy is sitting there ready to grab me and stall me, which lets the chainsaw guy catch up to me again. I keep running forward when another scripted enemy comes out, and it's another executioner enemy. Let's just take a pause here. I have basically nothing to my name, and have a chainsaw and executioner enemy coming at me from both sides, and some normal enemies to boot. Does that sound fun?
No.
It isn't. What's worse is that I now need to send Sheva up a broken ladder to grab a key to unlock a door in the next area. This is totally optional technically, but I stubbornly believe that the first shotgun would still be there in the next area, which would be huge for the run going forward. So, that's what I kept trying to accomplish. In this run specifically, I tried to kite the enemies, which means to just make the enemies follow you so you can go around them. So I could send Sheva up the ladder and have enough time to run out of the way. Unfortunately, one of the normal enemies lagged behind for whatever reason and swung on me around a corner. I'm not gonna lie, I got a little salty about that and just tried to full send it right after, which was obviously a stupid move. Just look at this image. I've got this crackhead about to saw my head off and this Don Ramon lookalike about to grab me, and the executioner is right behind him. Just look at Chris's face. He knows he's about to get his cheeks tickled.
Fuck.
Unsurprisingly, I immediately got grabbed, the chainsaw guy smacks me, and I'm dead. You know what's the funny thing though? Look at the background of this death, and you'll see the executioner grabbing Sheva in an instant kill move. So even if by the grace of God I survived that encounter, Sheva would have been killed moments after. In my second run, I'd like to mention something that happens sometimes that can totally change the success rate of each run. Sometimes the enemies are already aware of your presence before you even encounter them and will come to meet you. If you notice in the first run, this female enemy was in the house ready to attack me, but in the second run, she was outside the house along with this other guy. Granted, I did move through the house faster, but know that things like this happen often. I avoid her attack and start shooting her. Once I knock her down, I go to turn around and leave her behind and check on the chainsaw enemy to see if he noticed me, until I get hit in the back by the second guy. Of course, this attack also hit Sheva, which means we both die instantly. Another thing to mention is that enemies don't detect you by sound, but rather your proximity to them. I'm not sure if you just cross a certain line and the enemy automatically detects you, or if it depends on how close you are to the enemy itself, but that's why in this third run, I can shoot and attack all these enemies without the chainsaw enemy turning to me. Anyway, this time I try to just full send it forward, until yet another thing hits me. When you boost people up in this game, for some stupid reason, the camera follows them for a second. What's the problem with this, you ask? Well, you, as Chris, are still active. This isn't a cutscene where you're immune to damage. You can still be killed by enemies while this is happening. Thankfully, you can still move to compensate, but you can't see where you're going, so I just end up running into a wall most of the time. I get my head cut off, and that's the end of that.
Oh, you see this guy? See this guy? Number one bullshit guy.
Upon further runs, I follow the same pattern. Kill the normal enemies, kite the chainsaw dude, run past the executioner, throw Sheva up, and run towards the end of the area while waiting for her. There are some breakable barrels and boxes, but I simply do not have the ammo to take all the enemies out to actually loot them, and I can't run on empty when entering a new area because that's a good way to get soft locked and having to redo chapters, which I really don't want to have to do. Running through this area, there's a room across from me that I can access by jumping a window with the crate for me to break, but considering the ass blasters trying to get me, I never try to actually go in there because there's nothing that can spawn in that box that would be worth letting anybody catch up to me. Not to mention, there's a guy in there waiting to swing on you in an ambush. Further along, and someone will always jump out of these boxes at you, and after giving him the Mike Tyson special, I continue along until I'm near the door to escape. I have to hold out here until Sheva catches up, so I try to kill some of the enemies in the meantime. There's actually a moment here where I dodged a thrown weapon by an enemy that ends up being the clutch moment that lets me escape this area. I kite the enemies when Sheva shows up, and we bust down this door, which always requires both characters to open, which allows us into the next area. Since there's a cutscene that plays right after, all the previous enemies despawn, and this is a mechanic that I end up utilizing when deciding if it's worth fighting the enemies or just running away. Unfortunately, I totally forgot to run back in the old area and loot things, so I never really actually got anything from it. I used the key Sheva got and opened the door to this old building, and of course, the shotgun is nowhere to be found, meaning I basically wasted my time getting that key. That is, until the one crate in there gives me handgun ammo, which is huge since I was literally running on empty. Once I go up the stairs, I have to fight this blonde woman who's scripted to be here. I have to always do the neck break melee attack on her because she will always have a head parasite come out of her if you don't. Considering my ammo situation, I would have to avoid her if that was the case, but she drops a guaranteed piece of treasure which I really want. Any money is helpful towards the endgame, so I'll take it where I can. A thing to note about this section once you trigger the fight with this woman, enemies spawn on both sides of the building, so if I try to run backwards and kite the enemies again, I'm more than likely going to die trying since they'll block my way down the stairs. As such, I run forward to just avoid all the enemies I can, and right when I kick the door down, a guy almost hits me with practically zero counterplay. Unfortunately, since I have to shoot the guy to get him to back off, I fail to notice the dog right next to him and it attacks me, killing me before Sheva can even help me. It's at this point that I decide to upgrade my pistol's ammo capacity just so I start this area with some ammo. I need to pick moments to upgrade ammo capacity very selectively in case I ever find myself in a situation where I desperately need the ammo, as doing so refills the entire magazine of the gun in question. But there's only so many upgrades I can afford in the run, so I have to pick and choose carefully. After getting through that area and going through a loading screen door, I finally got to relax that this area never has any enemies. Just kidding, there's a damn executioner in here. Honestly, what else were you expecting? Just listen to my reaction. What the fuck, bro? Oh my goodness. Yeah, you can tell that this type of surprise wasn't even getting to me at this point that much. I run past the guy up the stairs, and guess what? Yep, another chainsaw guy, normal enemies, and multiple dogs. In an enclosed space. Needless to say, I died again. When I respawned, I actually was able to sneak past the executioner. Nah, he followed me as soon as I passed him. I decided to just run past all the enemies since I knew a cutscene would play at the next door that Chris and Sheva need to kick down. Not gonna lie, I almost kicked the ladder down to slow down the enemies until I realized that doing so would leave Sheva stranded down there. But after activating the cutscene, I ran back into the old room and looted everything before preparing myself for the boss at the end of this chapter. The good thing about this upcoming boss is that it's actually extremely easy no matter what difficulty you play it on. You don't need to actually use any of your ammo on it because you just have to burn it 3 times in a furnace room to instantly kill it. And so, this is the Ouroboros boss fight, and it's piss easy. Once you activate the boss, you simply need to just run back into the furnace room, where a cutscene plays of it being locked in there with you, and you lead it into the furnace a few times and pull a lever to shut the doors. Now, you do need to remember that the monster can escape if the doors aren't low enough to keep him in, but all that means is you just need to run around and wait for the furnace to reset and try again. Occasionally, the boss will disperse into the ground and reappear somewhere else. You can just manipulate that as it will always respawn in front of you, so just stand at the door of the furnace on the right side and it'll be exactly where you want it. One last thing to know about the furnace is that you can actually harm yourself in it if you lock yourself or your partner in, but this is usually only possible with a human teammate, so it wasn't a worry here. I did end up dying once because Sheva didn't move for some reason, so the boss hit her and I couldn't save her in time, but the second run I won with no problem. I opened the door with the key you pick up before the fight, and with that, that's the end of chapter 1-2. So, here we are in chapter 2-1, which out of the 3 chapters I played through, was certainly the second hardest. I started out by looting the beginning area and quickly making my way outside. This entire area is full of hard corners, wire traps, and enemies on higher elevation. The run was going smoothly until I got to the middle of this section where multiple dogs jumped me. It wasn't anything I couldn't handle since dogs aren't that strong for enemies, but then I found out that this mod has literal custom enemies. How'd I figure that out? Well, this damn thing showed up. I have no clue if one of the dogs transformed into this or if it just happened to spawn alongside them, but it surprised the heck out of me. While the dogs were busy playing with my face and Sheva was busy kicking them off me, I managed to kill this enemy without getting hit. It clearly just mimics the design of the liquor enemies later in the game, but it certainly isn't as strong as them. A pistol would hardly touch those guys on professional, but these guys go down easily enough, so it certainly was a shock to me and I was much more cautious going forward. As I made it to the ending portion of this section, I was blindsided when Chris stumbled when I made my way through this crate. Yeah, this is a recolor of the Reaper enemy that is only found near the end of the game like the liquors. They really aren't hard to kill or anything, but they have to be killed in a very specific way, and doing it in that enclosed space was asking for death. This is because when you fight a Reaper, you have to shoot specific white weak spots on it, and the more you shoot it, it exposes bigger ones, and on the third one, you have to deal a certain amount of damage where it will then die. The problem with this thing being in a small space is besides it hitting me and possibly killing me before Sheva could save me, Reaper enemies have this close range grab move that will instantly kill you. You can't be saved when this happens, and it might sound unfair when you first hear it, but you really shouldn't ever be close enough for it to do that unless you seriously misplay. So I ran away from it as fast as I could. In vanilla gameplay, enemies like Lickers and Reapers have a chance to drop expensive treasure, but considering the Black Licker that I fought didn't drop anything, I didn't want to take the chance without getting a checkpoint. I knew one was coming after opening this co-op door, so I did just that and jumped over the bridge. Unfortunately, there's a truck that comes barreling down at you that will instantly kill you if you don't take out the driver in time, so I had to focus on that for the time being. When that was done, I was shocked to find that all the enemies from the previous area could actually hop the bridge like I did and follow me. At that point, I knew I was screwed because I had enemies from behind the truck riding down the bridge, and the mini-boss fat dude behind me, so I was cooked. I did try to survive it regardless, but with the ranged enemies having free reign on me, it was over pretty quickly. The good news is that due to reloading a checkpoint, the previous enemies despawn, allowing me to go at my own pace this time, which allows me to grab this red herb that I had to skip last time. After collecting some things from the previous area, I was ready to go until I totally missed the driver of the truck and got run over like a dumbass.
Oh, I'm good.
Anyway, I stopped trying to ego diff the driver and instead shot the explosive barrels that he passed by to take him out. I didn't want to do this to use them for the later enemies that come running at you, but this saves ammo on the driver at least, because you only need 2 barrels to take him out. After clearing the bridge and running down some stairs, I find myself in a small sewer system that immediately swarms with dogs. With no healing items, I quickly died, but there was a checkpoint right before it, so I don't have to do the bridge again. Trust me when I say that checkpoints will be my best friend within this playthrough. Once I got out of there, I went outside to this one area with a locked door. Typically, this area is pretty simple in the vanilla game. Just some enemies that spawn the flying parasites, and that's it. Do you think that remains the same here? Yeah, no. But I don't want to be stuck here, so I just punch a guy in his mouth, shoot the lock, and book it down the hall. Of course, it couldn't just be home free from there. Oh no. See that nest egg thing? Yeah, the Reaper fuck is back. I waste no time in taking the ladder right next to it and pray Sheva doesn't get grabbed and murdered while I'm going up. Thankfully, she doesn't, and we make it out with no issues. Now, usually out here there aren't supposed to be any enemies until you grab a specific key that will make them all come, but of course, there's enemies everywhere before I even trigger that event to occur. I grab the key, but immediately get hit with a stray bottle on the way to the locked double doors and die. When I get to that point again, thanks to a nifty checkpoint from right before I grab the keys, I waste no time and run past as many enemies as possible. I know I'm missing out on possible treasure and ammo, but I figured I'm saving ammo by not sticking around, so it probably evens out. That is until I hit with a wall of enemies that I know I can't just run past without risking getting hit, and before I know it, an arrow hits me and I die. After seeing that, I made an executive decision to buy my first gun of the game. The pump shotgun, the Ithaca? Yeah, whatever. I made this decision because at this point, groups of enemies were becoming problematic and more common, and while I didn't need to kill them at this point, I could use it to just knock or stun a bunch of enemies at once. Returning to where I was stuck in this mess.
No way. There is no way this guy's in my way right now.
I almost made it out of this area until while grabbing some green herbs for healing, I suffered one of the rarest deaths in the game, which is dying to a flying parasite. It's literally never happened to me before, but this mod managed to make it happen, so congratulations for that. I actually forgot to mention this by now, but during this area, there's a guy in a helicopter helping you by shooting RPG rounds at the enemies on the ground. That sounds great until you realize that those shots can actually kill me. It didn't happen this time around, but no, I have been killed by it in other playthroughs. And so, on my winning run, I booked it to the exit door when the last building opened up with more enemies, and of course, another executioner. However, I managed to luck out because the RPG guy managed to hit the executioner and instantly killed him as he walked out. So that was cool. Nice of this damn game to throw me a bone here and there. After shenanigans getting past a couple buildings that were largely uninteresting, I made it to another unskippable part of the game. So here's the situation. You come upon a double door that lets you out of the building you find yourself in. Only one problem. It's locked from the outside, and you can't get out. So, what do? Why, you launch your partner across 2 buildings and have her open it for you. What else were you expecting? This is Resident Evil 5. Now, I heard there's some tech where by using a hand grenade and throwing it at a specific spot, it'll bounce backward and knock off the lock, allowing you to bypass that entire sequence. But I suck balls, and have never managed it, so I didn't even bother here. Usually this area isn't too big of a hassle, but with an AI Sheva who was somewhere where I can't help her, this spot was stressful. I had to shoot from across the buildings and pray that she didn't get hit. I was at the mercy of the AI not being stupid. Of course, she ended up dying multiple times, and heck, one time was because of me being stupid and blowing her up in an accident. After about 5 annoying deaths, I finally managed to get Sheva to open the door and let me out. I made sure to clear all the enemies before activating the boss fight. Oh, what boss fight, you ask? Well, young one, this is where you're supposed to fight the chainsaw enemy for the first time. Yeah, the same guys have been plowing my ass all game so far along with the executioners. You don't actually need to kill him here though. He'll always collapse and drop the treasure key early and get up a little after, so you technically don't even need to kill him. But you know what? There's 2. Yeah, you heard me. There's 2 chainsaw guys at once. See them? Yep, 1 and 2. But alright, let's do the damn thing. So I immediately turned my ass around and booked it backwards, only seeing an executioner waiting for me. Because of course there was one there. There's one in every section at this point. That battle doesn't last long though, as I quickly die. However, now that I know that tub of lard is behind me, I can plan accordingly. I make sure to toss a grenade at the 2 chainsaw guys' feet to instantly stun them and get a free melee attack. Since I know the maps of this game decently well, I know that I can kite around this area multiple times with relative safety, so the chainsaw guys themselves, while incredibly tanky, aren't actually super dangerous unless I run out of ammo. Unfortunately, I get my shins tickled by a throwing weapon, which puts me into dangerous health territory. More importantly, it essentially screws my entire plan since the enemies now had the chance to swarm me, where I eventually died when both Sheva and I got hit at the same time. But you know what? These first 2 runs weren't total failures, because I noticed something on the map. Do you see that blue triangle on it? That's basically always representative of the main boss in an area. Normal enemies don't ever receive that. So, I now knew who the chainsaw guy with the keys to the exit was, and now I know who to focus on. I got into the 3rd run only to have a double take once I activated the bosses. There were 3 chainsaw enemies now. The executioner? Guess he fucked off or was on lunch break because he told his buddy to step in for him. But that's alright. I can handle it.